The troops withstood the attack of the tough warriors led by the warriors of the four flames and gold, and their performance was enough to make the gods watching the battle in the city praise it as a fight without exaggeration. This is all because there is a bow soldier who is more cautious and timid than anyone else. It's too much. With my skill, it's impossible to hit. Behind Aisha and the others, Naza occupied the top of the 100-meter-long colonnade arranged in a staircase. Place the new magic sword arrow on the longbow. A long-distance shot using the Croso sword. It was the accurate shot that the first-level adventurers managed to contain, which continued the lives of Aisha and the others, as well as the troops on the left. When shooting at the opponent, it is also for the companions to replenish themselves with magic sword. I didn't expect such a tactic to exist. It's really a coincidence. But, that little human race is getting used to it. Be careful not to let the magic sword be snatched away by them. Naza shot out a thin arrow-shaped sword, magic sword. After hitting the target, or inserting it into the ground to cause an explosion, Aisha and the others drew the magic sword and refueled it while the targeted enemy retreated. Armed reinforcements are carried out while providing assistance. Counting on this, the troops on the left were barely able to hold the front line. Aisha also knew very well that without this support, his side would have been easily defeated long ago. Order them to hold the magic sword added by Naza in their hands and boldly aim at Alfred and the others to start bombing. What Naza focused on was protecting Aisha and his life. The other enemy forces, the tough warriors, wanted to eliminate the troublesome archers, but they were trapped by the Amazons who admired Aisha with the consciousness of dying. Thanks to them, Naza was able to focus on rescuing in this extremely unstable balance. She herself continued moving between the colonnades, actively changing the sniper's location. There's a good shooter here. And very cautious. Parts of Haydine's plan got out of control. We were perfectly dragged here. It can be seen that they are still very calm, but the four Gulliver brothers also praised Naza frankly. Freya Familia's battle was a battle of annihilation that was carried out after consuming a sufficient amount of Kratzo's demon sword. But this was due to a small error in Naza's immediate judgment. With the exception of the reserve team, all the other troops did not hesitate, following the guidance in firing the magic sword indiscriminately. Only Naza didn't use all the magic swords. Because she voluntarily gave up the hand of precision shooting with the magic sword ordered by Lily and instead gave priority to protecting herself. This magic sword is the lifeline, right? So I can't let it go easily. I was taken away with one arm because I acted too recklessly. Naza's adventurers always fight with safety in mind. A mistake in exploring the dungeon, the heartbreak of having a hand devoured by a monster took away her courage to fight monsters. But it also made her intelligent and strategic. It doesn't matter, I'm very aware of my weight. I'm just helping them, so calm down. Naza, who is dripping with sweat, is counting how much magic sword is left in the shake, and she is never greedy, just fulfilling the duty of support. She never thought that she would be able to defeat first-level adventurers. I never thought I could be a hero. Because of this, Naza kept the left's unity alive for so long. Judging by the results, the embarrassing past experience has now saved the partner from a crisis. However, this is just a slow suicide, the result is obvious. At the same time, Naza also accurately understood that this was just a desperate fight. After firing all the magic swords, the four Gulliver brothers will easily launch a counterattack. Aisha, Mikoto, or Naza will all be defeated by them, as easily as breaking a baby's neck. They didn't force themselves, but slowly waited for the balance to be broken. Bitterness and resignation flashed across Naza's side face. 8 against 2. This is the number that visualizes the state of wargaming today. Additionally, comparison of numbers after adding to the faction's coalition forces. The city's gods watched silently as the population grew furious at the devastation that was still happening. Even the will to stand up was thwarted by the one-sided battle. Although some areas still have resistance that is difficult to call a good fight, but in the face of the huge disparity in strength, most urban residents still look away one after another. The adventurers who are in the vortex of battle experience despair that far surpasses that of the people, but they still resist. Now this has become stubbornness. The enemy was too extraordinary and his loss was even absurd, so he did his best, thinking that he would at least get revenge with an arrow. Even if it is a scratch, it is only to create trouble for the other party and make the other party's face distorted with anger. The Freya Familia was so strong that it made the adventurers angry in the end. They and their strong warriors were enough to transform the shy mood of adventurers before the war into the current idea of sacrificing everything. The most important thing is to see these annoying guys in front of them crying. After all, the trump card of the coalition forces has not died yet. Clever adventurers found a bait, using them as cover, sent the white rabbit to the side of the goddess Freya. So even though this is a chance of victory thinner than a spider's thread, there is still hope. Hope must still be there, they convinced themselves. So the adventurers fought and kept fighting. They know the little recruit very well as an unfinished hero. Aisha, Mikoto, Naza, Daphne and Cassandra, who were still able to move, continued to resist, and Haruheim continued singing despite the profuse sweat that gushed out. So fight, keep fighting until the end. And suddenly, a boom was born that destroyed hopes. There was a blank space on the battlefield. Gripping everyone's hearts tightly, the crushing sound that overcame countless roars resounded loudly. All the people who fought on the island stopped fighting. Be enemy or companion. Everyone looked in that direction. The tough warrior held his breath. The adventurers' faces turned pale. The first-level adventurers' expressions didn't change, they just narrowed their eyes. He looked to the northwest, where the allied forces pretended not to hear the sound of battle. Stop this. Aina was the first to shed tears. Please stop that. In front of the mirror of God that reflected that scene, she reversed her chair and stood up abruptly. After screaming with all her might, Aina's eyes shed big tears, covering her face with her hands. Ace was the one who clenched his fist until the blood flowed out. She blamed herself and cursed herself for not being on that battlefield, with despair written all over her face. The other first-level adventurers were silent, and only Tiona, who was pale at the side, could understand her. Master Bell. It was Lily who finally screamed. This purpose finally caused his chaos, and a crack appeared on the commander's mask. The trembling brown pupils are looking at the huge black shadow standing in the amphitheater at the bottom of the eye lens. A warrior grabbed the boy by the head and lifted him up. The one who leaked fragments of his voice was the boy whose skull was still creaking. His body was reduced to a rag, and his armor was long gone, shattering into pieces. The feet off the ground lost their aim and hung awkwardly like a broken pendulum. Bel Cranel suffered a total defeat. The boar and warrior man didn't say a word. Holding a large black sword in his left hand and holding the boy's head with his right hand, his expression remained unchanged. The rust-colored pupils are still evaluating the boy who turned into a rag. Don't break it, Ottar. Far away, hearing the rumble in the ancient and decaying house of God, the god of beauty, who noticed what had happened, leaned against his cheek and said with his eyes tightly closed. There was no smile or joy on her face, she just took it as a natural result. Stand up. She gently extended her right arm. This extremely common action caused Bel's body to plunge into the falling mountain of rubble. The amphitheater, where traces of fierce battles are described, has completely changed. This place was baptized by flames and thunder, and suffered the consequences of the attack. The walls and the auditorium collapsed and countless stone slabs were raised. And on this battlefield, which tells how fierce the battle is, Ottar is frighteningly unharmed. Bel's throat forcibly pulled out the sound of the fanfare's revival. With the tide of blood dripping from the wound, he squeezed out the only strength he had and stood up. Blood gushed into his crimson pupils, staining them an even deeper red, and at the same time, he stretched out his trembling left hand. Fire, bolt. Bel Cranel marched forward bravely. Quick attack magic. Ottar didn't hide from the tip of the crimson lightning that flew towards him. He didn't even use the great black sword, just waved his right hand as if to repel mosquitoes. That is all. Just like that, the boy's magic dissipated. Before Bel, who was covered in blood, was speechless, that huge body had already jumped to the top of his head. The boy kicked the ground. He was seriously injured, but he still took the best evasive action that only first-level adventurers could do. But it's still not working. The thick and heavy feet turned the mountain of rubble into an open space, and then reached out with a palm, grabbed Bel's leg that should have escaped, and drew an arc above his head, hitting the stone slab. Bel fell on his back, and Bel himself became a hammer that broke the ground, stimulating the spine where the pain has lost its meaning. The report of the damage wasn't even a normal voice, so it came in the form of crying, and in his eyes, the blue sky gradually lost what it should be. This time, Bel's consciousness was actually about to be severed, and at this moment, the relentless soul of the shoe pierced his abdomen. Stand up. It won't end. There is nothing but despair in Bel's scarred body, and the warrior's baptism will never end. The man looked at the boy's blood and tears messed up the face of his emotionless pupils and said to him, "Remember. This is the smell of dirt." The boy said in a weak voice, "Stop hitting," but of course this did not reach his ears. He grabbed the boy's collar with his outstretched right hand, and threw him at high speed again. The slender body and white hair swayed like a dead rabbit. In front of the wreckage of the torn stone wall, Bel fell like a puppet with broken strings, his lips pressed against the ground and a pool of blood silently spread outwards. Seeing this scene, Ina's lower body finally went limp and she collapsed to the ground crying. Haydeen, who saw this scene with elfin eyes, was expressionless. Hestia, who understood the tragedy through Lily's eyes, felt a chill. "Where are you going, Asphi?" God Hermes, holding the shining magic tool and running away. Bel Cranel was, "That brat, isn't he level 5? Looking at the mirror photo, everyone was overcome with terror. At this moment, an adventurer said, "Idiot. Who do you think this guy is?" He was a skilled adventurer. The demi-human who survived the chaos 7 years ago said in fear and trembling, "This guy is Ottar." That was the answer. Absolute solution without proof. The apex. Bel's silently contracted body fell to the side, and only the figure of a king was reflected in the crimson vision. "If you want to be favored by the goddess, you must surpass me first." The boy who endured endless baptism and shed blood and tears felt his own end.